Hi, and good evening, everyone. If you could just type your child's name into the chat box. We'll get started in just 30 seconds. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 8th grade confirmation requirements meeting. I want to welcome you all and thank you for joining me this evening. I'm not the biggest fan of doing these on Zoom, but it seems like we have a good participation when we do this. So at the end, I'm going to ask you if you prefer this over an in-person meeting, but I want to move right into the program. I'm going to be sharing my screen and going back and forth to ask for questions using the chat box. What I'll do is I'll go through the slides, and as I finish each slide, I will stop the screen share and put an opportunity out there for you to ask any questions related to that particular slide. So without any further delay, I am going to begin the presentation. And I hope to begin the presentation. Okay, so off we go. We are talking about preparing for confirmation. And so your children are in the 2nd year of confirmation preparation. They will be completing lessons 13 through 24 in their chosen workbook this year to finish up all of their formal instruction. And while there are a total of 12 lessons for the year, 8 of the sessions take place in the class, and that is whether it's in your child's catechist home or here on campus in a school classroom. They should have started already. We are actually quite well underway. And then they have the 4 sessions that they come on Sunday afternoons. So your child should be going to either their catechist's home or here to the school building for a 1-hour lesson based on the calendar that we have set for the year. They do have their student book that they are completing the second half of. If for some reason your child has misplaced their book, please do get in touch with our office so we can help you out with that. And you will recall that last year you received an email link to the Ascension platform so that you could set up an account for your child. And that was to be used in the event that your child was absent from class, because a big portion of this program is video-based. And so without viewing the video, they can't really complete the lesson without having all the information that is needed. So if that's something that you're not sure about, that you set up an account for your child, please do get in touch with me and we can look into that for you. And again, that's to be used if they miss a class. So for example, we didn't follow up after the first session in the church, but we will be, now that things are kind of settling down here, to notify those families whose children did not attend the lesson that they need to complete it online. And we do receive a report from Ascension that the lesson has been completed. And as I briefly mentioned a moment ago, there are 4 sessions that are held in the church at 4:30 in the afternoon prior to the 5:15 Mass. And so when they come on those days, the expectation is that they're coming for the lesson and not leaving until Mass is completed. We have set up a seating chart for the lessons in the church. That will remain the same through the year. So each class is sitting in the same area, but the parent should be sitting with their child. The parents are the sponsor at this point because they definitely have chosen them. They should be sitting together, not a row of students and then a row of adults behind them. So please be sure when you come to the next session, and for 8th grade, that's going to be on November 6th, that you're sitting with your child at that session and that you stay for the Mass. And then another part of the program this year is participation in Holy Hour. And for our 8th grade students, that will take place on Tuesday, December 13th at 6:45 in the church. Your child's catechist will be giving them a reminder, and it's actually an attendance flyer that they will bring with them when they come to Holy Hour. And with that as well, an adult must accompany and be seated with each of our 8th grade students. So I'm going to stop my screen share for the moment and go to the chat and ask if anybody has a question on the instructional part of the 8th grade program. Are there any questions on the instructional part? You can type that into the chat box. I'll give it 20 seconds to see if anybody types anything in there. And if not, we're going to move back to the presentation. Okay, I am not seeing anything. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Oh. The Holy Hour is on December 13th at 6:45 p.m. Again, your child's catechist will send home a flyer about that. And in the parish bulletin each week, the Office of Faith Formation has a column in there, and we list all of the upcoming activities, dates, by grade level. So you can always find the information there. And also on the parish website, we have on our documents page the calendar of lessons for each grade level. So you can always check there as well. Okay, back to the share. I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay, just as in 7th grade, in 8th grade, the students have to complete their community service. So they did receive a form, which I will switch my screen to show you in a moment, that lists all of the items that you see right now on the PowerPoint slide. There's one blessing bag donation item, and this year it's dishwashing liquid. If you noticed, we changed that this year. Last year, the students had a list of about 10 different items that were requested to be donated. But after having a conversation with Sister Carol and just thinking about the economy today, it really wouldn't be appropriate for us to be asking for that many items. So we've limited it to just one item that they have to donate, and that can be brought to their class, whether it's in their home group or here in the school. And then the catechist will get that to us. The school catechists, we will collect them from the class, or you'll bring them to room 108, and then we'll deliver them to the outreach for you. For the home groups, if catechists have any of those, they can bring them with them to the meeting in November, but I'll send a reminder specifically to catechists. Additionally, your child has to volunteer at 1 10 a.m. family mass. And back in September, you were sent an email that had a link to Eventbrite so that you can select the day that you wanted to schedule your child to volunteer. So if you haven't done that, please do so. And I would also like to just remind everybody, please do not have your child just show up to volunteer if you haven't signed them up. We have set the number of volunteers based on how much work there is to do. And if we have extra students showing up, then somebody is not completing their service. So please do sign up through Eventbrite. If something happens that your child cannot complete their service, we ask that you delete the service, or if you don't know how to do that, contact us and we will remove them from that session to open up a spot for another student. They will also volunteer once as a room helper in either our Saturday or Tuesday program. And that also was sent through an Eventbrite sign up. The email was sent out early September. It comes from religioused@srolchurch.org. If you're not sure about that, you can search your email for that email address, and you should find the message. Your child can choose, or whatever works best for your family, whether it be a Saturday morning, they come at 8:30 and they are finished at 9:45. If it's Tuesday afternoon, they come at 4 o'clock and they finish at 5:15. But they need to be registered to do that. And I would also like to note right now that if your child attends class here on campus on a Saturday or a Tuesday, please do not sign them up to volunteer on the day that they have class. They have to attend their class. You should sign them up for a different day. I'm just going to check the chat because I see a message here. Oh, that's just somebody signing in. Okay. And then lastly, they have to complete an additional 5 hours of community service. And that is something that can be done. You'll notice every once in a while, we'll send out a message about we needed helpers for the pretzels and pierogies dinner that was just here last Saturday evening. CYO track meet needed some volunteer helpers. We sent out an email about that. I'm going to be sending an email out for help that is needed to change the missal books in the church. They have to be exchanged with a new book. So that email will be going out in another day. I will try to send those emails out in the evening exclusively at 5 o'clock because I have typically sent them out to go at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then there are some people that don't check their email until later on in the day and they miss out on the opportunity. So going forward, any requests for volunteer hours will be sent at 5 o'clock in the afternoon so that it will give everyone an opportunity to sign their child up. I am going to stop sharing this screen to ask her if there are questions regarding community service. Okay. So if your child is participating as an altar server, a lector, in the choir here at St. Rose, that counts as the extra community service for those extra 5 hours that they have to earn. So that when they help at the Mass, they're doing some very specific job. So they are handing out the handouts that the children receive after the homily. They stamp the Mass sheets when everybody leaves the church. So service as an altar server, choir member, or lector would count towards their general community service hours. Are there any other community service related questions? Okay. Seeing none, and I will ask again at the end if you have more questions, because sometimes you don't think of it at the moment. But I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. And I'm going to move us to the next slide, which is about their confirmation name selection. This was sent home last year, so they should have completed the form and submitted that while they were in 7th grade. And we are now reviewing to see who we did not receive that from. When the catechists come to the meeting in November, they will be given a list of students who have not submitted those to us yet and a new form so that this can be taken care of. This has to be completed as soon as possible. So hopefully we had the majority of them returned to us already. But if you haven't and you know it, that you haven't sent that in, please do give that to your child's catechist so that they can return that to us. I'm just going to take a look. I see a question in the chat. Service they completed. So once they became, I have a question here about when the community service hours count from. And so once they became 8th graders, so that means they finished school in June, and they started doing community service during the summertime. So that does count towards their community service hours. Okay, I am going to move to the next slide. There shouldn't be any questions about confirmation name selection. Confirmation sponsors. So again, when they sent their confirmation name and sponsor information form back to us, they were to send us the name of their confirmation sponsor. But you also received a sponsor certificate that had a return envelope attached to it. That form was to be given to the sponsor, and the sponsor was to complete that and send that back to us in that return envelope. So just to review again, the requirements to be a sponsor, according to canon law, we don't make this up ourselves. This is coming directly from canon law. They must be 16 years of age at the time of the confirmation. So, for example, if your child selected somebody who was 15 when they selected them, by the time confirmation in the fall of 2023 comes around, they will be 16 years old. So that is not an issue. If they do have a sponsor that is not quite 16 years old at the time of confirmation, we will arrange a meeting between one of the priests, the sponsor, and the candidate, just to be sure that they understand what they are agreeing to do. I do have a question here about getting another copy of the forms. I will be reposting these to the parish website. Faith Formation has its own site within the website. I will pull that up for you before we finish out this meeting so that I can show you where to look. And now that these students are in 8th grade, I am going to move their documents to the 8th grade form. So I will show that to you. The individual must be a fully initiated Catholic, so that means they must have been baptized, received communion, and confirmed in the Catholic Church. They must not be excommunicated. I haven't come across anybody yet that was excommunicated from the church. And the one thing that they cannot be is the parent of the child. So I'm going to ask you if there are any questions regarding the sponsors. You can type that right into the chat box before I move to the next slide. And I'll give 10 seconds for that to start. Okay, looks like we're good to go. Okay, this year, the candidates are going to be asked to write a letter to the pastor. You will receive, or your child will receive, a form from their catechist explaining all of this to them. So this is something that you're going to want to take a look at. The catechists will be meeting with me in early November, so you should see that coming home from them at the child's next class. So what they're going to be asked to do is to introduce themselves to the pastor in their letter and tell the pastor something about your family or their background. They're going to request why they want to receive confirmation. They're going to explain how they prepared for the sacrament. So this is when they're going to talk about their attendance at Mass, what kind of community service they've done to prepare for confirmation, what name they selected and why they selected that as their confirmation name. And they can talk about the person that they chose to be their sponsor and why they chose that person. And then lastly, they're going to explain how they're going to carry out their life of service after they receive confirmation. And in case you don't realize, the reason we have added having them work as a room helper, having them help at Mass, donating to the parish outreach, the reason for that is for them to see the different types of opportunities there are for people to be involved in the parish. And so we have the majority of our catechists are all volunteers. There are people who volunteer during Mass as ushers, as lectors, as altar servers. Obviously, they wouldn't do that once they pass college as an altar server, but what are they going to do to continue their life in the church? And we do expect, that because they're receiving confirmation, it's their intention to remain involved in the Catholic Church. Okay. Any questions on letter to the pastor? And there will be written on the form when that needs to be returned either to the catechist or, well, to the catechist, either in the home group or the school classes. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. So in total, the confirmation requirements include the completion of their 7th and 8th grade community service, and we will be following up with the families of students that did not submit the 7th grade service form. So if you happen to still have that at home, you can either give that to your child's catechist or you can give it directly to our office here, because that is something that we need to have. The rest of the paperwork is the confirmation name and sponsor information form, which they should have submitted in 7th grade. The confirmation sponsor certificate, which should have been submitted by your child's sponsor to us through 7th grade. They are also going to submit their 8th grade service form, the letter to the pastor. They're going to participate in a confirmation retreat, which will take place in the fall of 9th grade. They'll participate in confirmation rehearsal, which happens pretty much like a week before confirmation. And then finally, the sacrament of confirmation. Typically here at St. Rose, confirmations are in October, but this all is according to the bishop's schedule. We don't pick the day that we're having confirmation. The bishop's office will notify us of the confirmation schedule. So I'm going to go to the last slide, and I will stop sharing my screen and ask if anybody has a question on any of the information that was on the last slide, or information that wasn't on any slide at all that you're curious about. So you can just type that right into the chat box. And as I'm waiting for any questions to pop up, I'm also going to ask you, do you prefer having a meeting via Zoom rather than in person? If you could put that into the chat box, I would appreciate it. So that will help with planning. I have a question. If the child chooses a sponsor who is unable to attend the ceremony, great question. Does someone stand in? So on occasion, a sponsor cannot be present at the confirmation. And what happens in that case is an individual that is called a proxy will stand in the place of the sponsor. At the confirmation rehearsal, we will ask if there is anybody whose sponsor is unable to attend on the confirmation day. And we will have a form for completion by the individual who will serve as the proxy. The proxy has to meet the same requirements as a sponsor, meaning that they have to be a fully initiated Catholic, 16 years of age, not excommunicated from the church. And the one person that a proxy can't be is the parent, same as the sponsor. So I hope that fully answers your question. And the rest of the comments are kind of unanimous that everybody likes Zoom. So while I do miss seeing everybody in person, I do want to be respectful of your time and, you know, recognize the convenience of the Zoom. You know, you could be in your pajamas there or whatever. But thank you so much for joining this evening. If you have a question at some other point in time, please feel free to contact me. Email is the best way because I have access to that wherever I am, but you can certainly call the office. And I do want to just quickly share the parish page that you would find the documents that I was speaking of, because I did tell you that I would do that. And so I am going to share my screen. And I'm going to hope that as I toggle through the pages, you see the changes. So, and I'm just going to need somebody to let me know. Right now, I'm showing you the home screen. I'm pointing my cursor over the faith formation. You see there's a toolbar across the front. Faith formation and then religious education. When I click on this, it's going to take us to a different page. Can somebody just put in the chat box that you can see the different page? I just want to make sure that the screen I'm showing you is what you're seeing. Okay. Now on the left side here, you'll notice there's a page called Documents. You click on that. And then under Sacramental Documents and Resources, you will go to the 8th grade documents. And this is now going to be updated. You're going to disregard this because this is for this year's confirmation that's taking place this weekend. But these forms will all be appropriate for your child's 8th grade class. So I will take care of uploading those this week, and you'll be able to access them. So don't pay attention if your child didn't complete the document when they were in 7th grade. Don't pay attention to these because this is for this year's 7th graders. Go to where it says 8th grade 2022 documents. Okay, I'm going to stop my share again. And I'm going to say thank you for joining me this evening. I wish you a good evening. Again, if you have any other questions regarding confirmation or anything else for that matter, well, I may have to ask where to get the information, but please feel free to reach out and I'll help you to the best of my ability. Okay, have a great evening, everyone. Bye now.